Previously on Jackson reviews a randomly selected Doctor Who story.
I made this scarf myself. Not for this video, that would be insane.
Later that night...
Now that that's going, let's load up the wheel and get the next video selected. Isn't that... I swear the Doctor wore a scarf in that. Let me just... Yeah, of course she did. No. I don't need to do that. I'm not that crazy, am I? No. I'm not that crazy. I'm not going to make that scarf. I'm just simply not. I'm not going to.
I made the scarf.
Happy New Year! What a coincidence that we are looking at Doctor Who's first New Year's special. Okay, you may have noticed at the beginning that the picker wheel showed the list of stories that were up for selection this time, and it was scrolled to the one that showed this story. That was on purpose, but I promise I didn't cheat when picking this. Technically. I originally set it up to record, and this is the footage I captured. And I deemed that to be unacceptable, so I decided it's not cheating if I'm just trying to get the result that I genuinely got randomly. So I sat down for 10 minutes trying to spin the wheel over and over again to get resolution to pop up again. And thankfully I did get it quickly, but as a result of me trying to cheat the system and get it to pop up faster, I scrolled to that and it's there now. I'm so glad I went through the effort to try and make it as hidden as possible, and I didn't have to put an explanation in this at all, and it was just perfectly seamless. But yes, I made the scarf. Something interesting I noticed while I was making the scarf, in its relation to the 13th Doctor's era, was just how bright and colorful it is. You would think I would recognize that as I gathered the 10 colors of yarn, but it was truly while I was crocheting this that I realized just how bright it is, and how it reminded me of a certain aspect of the marketing during the 13th Doctor's era that I'm going to call the 13th Doctor swoosh. So much of the marketing surrounding the 13th Doctor shows lots of colors, especially bright colors. It goes down to even these Blu-rays I have here, where this has very bold and distinct colors. This, again, has very bold things here. This look here on Eve of the Daleks is not how it looks in the episode. Flux, this is gorgeous. This looks amazing. It's not how it is in the show, but it's there on the marketing. All of these, even this one with lots of white, has lots of distinct colors, and this is all in service of a very bold coloring. But even Big Finish has, in all of their CDs, it has the swoosh. 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 And it even is on the back cover art. But what's interesting is this aspect that is very present in the marketing is either not present in the show or often obscured or minimalized. And I find it such a strange contrast to see the difference between the marketing and how the show actually looks. It's an interesting contradiction that exists with the 13th Doctor. Now, before we get into the actual review of the episode, I want to say this is not going to be a super positive review, but I don't want to fall down into 13th Doctor bashing like happens so often when talking about the 13th Doctor online. I'm just giving my opinion on this episode, and I'm going to try and not fall down into 13th Doctor bad arguments. I'm trying to take this episode on its own terms and see what I think of it. And I'm sorry, it's not the best episode. In fact, just to highlight that marketing thing I was talking about, if we jump ahead in the episode from its beginning to the Doctor's first appearance, we start with seeing 13 and the fam. I'm sorry, I hate that term, but that's what they're called, so I gotta stick with it. We start with 13 and the fam watching a galactic fireworks show. It's very bright, it's colorful, then you get plunged into the TARDIS, and the TARDIS perfectly represents the contradiction in marketing I mentioned earlier. The columns themselves are very bright, but everything else about the TARDIS is very dark and empty. We then go to the rest of the episode, and everything is kind of dark, void, muddy type look. It simply doesn't match the aesthetics of the marketing, and this darkness even exists in the theme and credits in terms of visuals and music. Like, I'm being completely serious when I say this level of visual effects and sound design would be better with the Seventh Doctor. And I don't get why you have this marketing and these pieces of color only to ignore it in most of the actual show. I think that mismatching is at least part of why people are frustrated with the Doctor. There's this, like I said, inherent contradiction that seems to exist. How many times have I said contradiction now? Too many. Let's move on. Now, I really do hope to keep that being as negative as I get in this review. So let's go on and start with the actual beginning of the episode. The episode starts with a narrator describing an ancient battle where a unnamed big villain was defeated and its body was divided into 3 parts and scattered around the world. The narrator's actually not bad. I like him. It works for something that feels closer to legend than actual truth. And the narrator works with those circumstances. The legend stuff even makes it make sense that 2 of the people who bury their parts only buried them like maybe half a foot deep, if I'm being generous. And since it's a story, it's not literal. Sorry, wait, what? Oh, we see it in modern day later, and that really is how deep they're buried. Fine. The third person who was out to bury his piece gets killed and dies on a road before he can bury his part. I'll also point out that the person who didn't make it to where he needed to go was shot on what appears to be a very common-made road, and he was just left unmoved for hundreds of years. In fact, when he's dug up, he is in the exact same pose as when he fell. So, no, he didn't move. They just left him on a modern road and ignored him for 1,000 years. We then see 2 people, Lynn and Mitch, exhuming this person in the modern times, and they are filling time by talking about their romantic relationship. And again, I really want to be nicer to this than I feel like I'm going to be, because I do feel like too many people are too mean to Chris Chibnall, but the dialogue here is bad. It's awkward and it's weird. They go from talking about a body to talking about being in a relationship to examining a skeleton, and none of it feels natural. Not a single word. I'm sorry. And now we cut back to the scene I talked about earlier with the Doctor and fam having celebrated 19 New Year's Eves. That's too many New Year's Eves. Finds a distress call on Earth about a, quote, shift that occurred when the body of the ancient enemy was put under a black light by Lynn and Mitch, and it summoned the other 2 parts of it to itself. Okay. We then cut to see Lynn examining a giant squid-like creature on the wall that you just know is the ancient enemy having been reunified. But when the Doctor and fam arrive, they find the creature gone, and the Doctor gets some goo that was left behind to examine later. She then dismisses the 2 archaeologists, and it's really weird that they are so willing to leave, but it does make more sense with Lynn, as we will see later. Now, one downside to the clunky dialogue I talked about earlier is that it makes the next scene, which is supposed to be awkward, not stand out. Right after this, there's a scene where Lynn and Mitch separate, with Lynn choosing to go off on her own, and this clearly should stand out and make you feel like, oh, the creature got her. But you think it honestly feels like the earlier awkward dialogue. It's the same. But then after that, there's this excellent scene with Lynn in the bathroom, shut up, as she finds the creature attached to her. And it's really well done. It's terrifying. And even the voice that the creature uses doesn't immediately give away what it is. And the way it literally puppeteers her, and even speaking through her while she's listening to it, is honestly really freaky and terrifying. It's really good stuff. You are mine. The Doctor and fam then go back to Graham's place, and Ryan's dad shows up, and this is set up for the future scenes in the episode works pretty decent. I think the knowledge of how these types of things should work that elevates it more, because they're able to get away with a lot of implication of what is to come, since Ryan and his dad, Aaron, are very separated and haven't seen each other at all in a while. And it's at this point that the Doctor takes off this scarf, and we aren't even at the 13-minute mark with the episode. Like, you sort of see her taking it off in the background, and then it's gone for the rest of the episode. She wore it for essentially 2.5 scenes. One in the TARDIS, one in the sewer, and then coming back to Graham's. And then it's gone. Like, realistically, if I were to sit down and do the math, I would say that this scarf got maybe 3 minutes of runtime if I'm being generous. I'm gonna keep wearing mine, but this is a genuinely cool bit of iconography that only exists in this episode. Please let her wear the scarf. Like, every time I think of this episode, I think of the scarf. Like, this, it looks cool. Just let her wear the scarf. It's during this scene that the Doctor analyzes the goo she got from the wall and finds it's Dalek goop. This is the closest one I have to what's shown in the episode. Honestly, I think they could have managed to get away with not saying it's a Dalek for longer. Like, it was not obvious at all as a first-time viewer. And I can say because I watched this episode as close to live as I could when it originally came out. I genuinely didn't see it being a Dalek coming. I thought this would be a new original species. I will say that the creature being a Dalek works really well and does genuinely raise the stakes. For all my criticisms of the episode that have come and will come throughout the rest of this video, the stuff with the Dalek is generally pretty good. We then get a fun scene of the Dalek using Lynn to drive through the streets, and it being bad at driving and potentially killing other drivers does work really well. Knowing it's a Dalek, it doesn't care. She's eventually stopped by a cop, and you hear Lynn just saying, "You are an enemy of the Daleks," in that monotone Dalek way.
You are an enemy of the Daleks.
Again, is really good. It's really great for the imagination. It makes me think that this is what everyone else hears, but she is actually still hearing the Dalek in her head like we heard earlier in the episode. We then divert to Ryan and his dad. The way Ryan and Aaron interact is really interesting. These are two people who are clearly not on the same page, don't really understand what page the other person is on, and it's just them slowly revealing where they are, and it's clear Ryan has worked really hard to move on from his dad because his dad has been absent for so long, while his dad is just trying to see if they can pretend he's an involved parent, but he quickly realizes just how badly he has screwed up over Ryan's life. The Doctor, Mitch, Yaz, and Graham are investigating things, and Mitch just happens to know about that story from the beginning. Okay, cool. But it being readily available in a textbook that's a quick access? Like, are you kidding me? That honestly, like I said, felt more like a legend than something that should be in a easily accessible textbook. The Doctor then figures out stuff with the Dalek, and more good ideas keep happening, with the idea of this Dalek being an early scout who hasn't been involved in many events with the Daleks. That's interesting. The Dalek wouldn't know much about the Doctor, other than maybe the first 2 adventures, but it's interesting. It's something different done with the Daleks, even if it's not really that important to the plot. I at least admire the effort there. The Doctor then gets on a call with the Dalek and threatens it, but then the Dalek laughs. The sound of a Dalek laughing at the threat is disturbing. It's a really well done laugh. And the Doctor ends the call by declaring, "Here's my New Year's resolution," in a kind of action movie one-liner, and it's really weird. And basically, it's the only reference outside of the beginning, with them watching 19 New Year's Eves, that this is a New Year's special. Like, with the regular specials, the Christmas specials, the fact that it's Christmas is inherent to the plot, and has moments that only work at Christmas. Like when Jackie was attacked by a Christmas tree, or when they did their own version of A Christmas Carol, or many others, too many for me to name. The sad reality is, most people don't have as many of those kind of thoughts about New Year's, which makes the decision to move to a New Year's special during this time strange. I get wanting to be different, and again, I applaud the effort to do something different, but it just feels like a misstep to move to New Year's instead of Christmas. The Doctor then tries to get help from UNIT, only to find it has been shut down due to foreign money drying up. Okay, if you're confused it's been a few years, this is a half-baked idea executed badly that seems to just be, here's commentary on Brexit. In terms of the depth of the commentary being done here, it would be like if I took time aside from this review to talk about Free Palestine, just to go right back into the main review. It would be disingenuous to say I did anything about that, or even successfully said my own thoughts on the topic. If you want something actually doing commentary on that topic, and doing it well, with a Doctor Who spin, check out the Intergalactic Song Contest from the 15th Doctor's era, which is actually featuring commentary about Israel and Palestine, and the commentary is baked into the story, to where if you remove the commentary from the episode, the story would be fundamentally different, rather than being a one-line commentary in an unrelated story. Anyway, Ryan and Aaron have returned to Graham's house, and the Doctor goes off, leaving Graham and Aaron alone. Despite Graham and Aaron having a point of commonality in Graham's wife, Grace, their scene together holds far less weight than what his scene with Ryan did. Anyway, back to the Dalek. The Dalek then puppeteers Lynn to go to a warehouse and build a Dalek casing for it. The Dalek building its new self here honestly feels like a more sinister version of the scene from The Woman Who Fell to Earth, where the Doctor builds her sonic screwdriver. And honestly, it's a really good callback if that was the intention. There's also this great little moment where Lynn is clearly too tired to continue, but the Dalek just angrily tells her to get back to work as she tries to take a moment and rest. The Doctor and Fam find themselves at the warehouse after the Dalek has completed its repairs, and honestly, I really like the junkyard Dalek. I know lots of people really don't like it, but it's just perfect for if a Dalek went to a junkyard and tried to scrap together pieces of itself to make a body. It works really well from that perspective, and I like it. The first confrontation between the Dalek and the Doctor is honestly pretty decent. The Doctor tries to talk the Dalek into leaving, the Dalek says no, but unfortunately, honestly, even after immediately finishing that scene when I was making my notes, I can't remember much about it. All I can say is it's a decent scene, but not a memorable one. After returning to the TARDIS and trying to track down the Dalek after it left, the Doctor gets a call from Graham, who has decided him not being in the episode is done now and he needs to get back in the episode. So he just calls the Doctor and asks her to pick him up. The Dalek then goes to a base and shuts down parts of the internet, and there is a joke about people now having to sit around and talk with each other.
Suppose we'll have to have a conversation? What?
It's bad. It's not even just that the joke is uninspired, it's that the performances are played like the actors were people just pulled off the street. Not even actors, just people pulled off the street. I didn't mention this earlier, but Aaron is an inventor who has invented a combination microwave and oven, which I'm not sure if that would work, but it does feel like the kind of thing invented by someone who is trying to make money while not being involved in his kids' lives. Everyone is then able to attach components of the combination microwave oven to the Dalek, which... okay. They were able to get to it without being hurt by the genuine Dalek gun. Okay. They did so good with the rest of the Dalek stuff that... fine, I'll let this go. They then destroy the Dalek casing, and everyone celebrates, only to find the Dalek has taken over Aaron. This moment of the Dalek taking over Ryan's dad honestly works really well, and in order to try and get it off of him while pretending to follow the Dalek's commands, the Doctor takes the Dalek into the TARDIS and tricks it to be dragged out the doors into a supernova. Throwing the Dalek into a sun-going supernova is a pretty cool plot point, but on top of that, there is just enough work done earlier between Ryan and his dad to make the scene where his dad seemingly has to sacrifice himself honestly work. The Dalek was supposed to separate from Aaron in a gravity tunnel, but he actually manages to hold on to Ryan's dad, forcing Ryan's dad to sacrifice himself. I think there are two problems with this scene. The first is there's too much separation between the two scenes. The scene with Ryan mostly reconciling with his dad and this sacrifice scene are separated by too much time. It's about half the episode's runtime, so you don't feel it as much, and Ryan didn't stay with his dad in the intervening time, letting you feel the closeness. And it's interrupted by the Graham and Aaron scene, and that scene doesn't work as well. I feel like it would have made more sense if they had swapped those two scenes, and Graham was the one who went off doing things with the doctor, and Ryan stayed behind at the house with his dad. It at least would have brought the scene closer, and that would have felt more like them being forced to talk with each other, and you would have felt more of their bond, but the scene does work as well. Now, the other problem with the scene is that Ryan does save his dad. I genuinely, when watching this, thought Ryan's dad died. I wholeheartedly believed he was going to have to die, and this scene works less well with him having survived. Mainly because he doesn't appear in another episode of the entire run. I'm serious. This is his only appearance. I don't know why he survived. And then at the very end of the episode, you get the narrator from the beginning again, talking about things, and honestly, this doesn't work as well here. You just barely got away with it at the beginning, because it's something that teeters on the edge of something that is a legend that can be told by a narrator, and there was no narrator in the intervening piece of the episode, but at the end he's narrating about things we just saw, which only serves to draw attention back to the narrator, makes me question, who is this guy? Overall, the story is just okay. The Dalek elements are the best parts. I don't see anything beneficial about going to the New Year's specials instead of the Christmas ones. Part of my reaction may come from the fact that since this episode's come out, a Ninth Doctor story has come out called Old Lang Syne, which actually is a New Year's special and covers the themes of New Year well. It's much better than this. The Ninth Doctor story actually covers emotions that you do experience around New Year's, making the story about New Year's rather than just taking place at New Year's. This doesn't really work as a New Year's special, but I will say as a Dalek story, it's honestly pretty good. I enjoyed a lot of that. The stuff with Ryan's dad feels a bit shoehorned in, but is mostly passable. Honestly, though, I mostly just wanted this scarf in the episode more. I spent so long on this. So much of the 13th Doctor's era is all about the... Of course, I really... I need to not bump this table. Oh no. Oh, thank goodness she still has the Sonic. Oh, that would have been bad. I wouldn't have had it for the rest of the video, but it would have just been a thing for me to clean up afterwards in addition to all the other props I have. Okay, and now I'm not going to say anything funny for the blooper reel. Nothing that's going to make the next episode bite me in the butt. Nothing. Okay. Another good video. Man, this jacket is hot. Worth it, though.